You wake up early. You go to work. You try to be responsible. You pay your bills on time. You don't splurge recklessly. You try to save when you can. You even think about retirement sometimes. You're doing everything right. So why do you still feel stressed? That's the strange part. You're not wildly irresponsible. You're not ignoring your finances. You're not pretending money doesn't matter. And yet, something feels tight. Like no matter how organized you are, there's always pressure sitting in the background. A low hum, a quiet anxiety. Here's the truth most people don't say out loud. Stress isn't always about doing something wrong. Sometimes it's about doing everything right in a system that feels unstable. Let's start with effort. You were told that if you worked hard, things would get easier. More experience equals more income. More income equals more comfort. Simple equation. But today, income grows, expenses grow faster. You get a raise, rent increases. You earn more, insurance adjusts. You move forward, costs move too. So even when you're progressing, you don't feel it. It feels like running on a treadmill that's slightly speeding up. You're not falling, but you're not arriving either. And that in-between space, that's stressful. There's also expectation. You thought by now you'd feel more stable. Maybe you make more than your parents did at your age. Maybe you hit milestones that used to feel successful. But the internal peace that was supposed to come with it? Not quite there. Because stability today costs more than it used to. It's not just rent and groceries, it's health insurance, retirement contributions, emergency funds, car repairs, student loans, subscriptions that quietly stack. Being responsible is expensive. You're not just surviving, you're maintaining, and maintenance is exhausting. There's also the psychological side. When you care about money, you think about money. You check your balance, you track your spending, you calculate future scenarios. That awareness is smart, but it also means your brain never fully relaxes. You're not panicking, you're just managing all the time. That constant management creates cognitive load, even if nothing is wrong. You're always anticipating what could go wrong. What if rent increases again? What if the job market shifts? What if something breaks? You're responsible, so you plan. And planning is good, but it's also tiring. Another reason you're stressed is comparison. Even if you think you don't compare yourself, you do. We all do. You see someone traveling, someone buying a house, someone upgrading. You know intellectually that social media isn't the full picture, but emotionally, it still registers. You start wondering, am I behind? Should I be further? Am I missing something? You're doing everything right, but you still feel like you're not ahead. That gap between effort and feeling creates tension, and tension creates stress. There's also uncertainty. The modern world feels unpredictable. Markets shift, industries change. Technology disrupts everything. You can do everything right and still feel unsure about the future. That uncertainty makes it hard to relax because you're not just managing today, you're preparing for a future that feels unclear. And preparing for an unclear future is mentally expensive. Now let's talk about something subtle: control. You probably have some control over your habits, but you don't control inflation. You don't control housing markets. You don't control economic cycles. So even when you're disciplined, external forces still impact you. That lack of full control creates background anxiety. You're steering the car, but the road keeps changing, and you don't always know what's ahead. There's also the myth of arrival. We think there's a point where stress disappears. When I make X, I'll feel calm. When I save Y, I'll relax. When I pay this off, I'll breathe. But here's what actually happens. You hit one goal, your standards rise. You hit another, your expectations adjust. There's no clear finish line, just moving benchmarks. So you never quite feel done. That doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means your brain adapts, and adaptation is powerful, but it can also steal satisfaction. Quick pause. If this feels uncomfortably accurate, don't worry. That just means you're self-aware, and maybe slightly overthinking at 11 p.m., like the rest of us. If this channel helps you make sense of it, subscribe. No hype, just clarity. Now here's something deeper. Being responsible can feel isolating. You say no when others say yes. You skip things to stay on track. You think long-term when others think weekend. That discipline builds stability, but it can also feel like you're constantly holding back, and holding back requires energy. It's easy to think the stress means you're failing, but sometimes stress means you care. You care about your future. You care about security. You care about not repeating mistakes. Caring isn't weakness, it's awareness, but awareness without perspective can turn into pressure. So what's actually happening? You're navigating a high-cost, high-information world. You know more about risks than previous generations did. You see market swings instantly. You see layoffs in real time. You see economic headlines daily. You're informed, but information amplifies uncertainty. In the past, you might not have known about every potential risk. Now, you do, and your brain doesn't always know how to filter that. Another factor is decision fatigue. Every day involves financial choices: groceries, subscriptions, career moves, investments, savings rate, insurance options. Each decision seems small, but small decisions accumulate. By the end of the week, your brain feels full, not because you failed, because you're constantly choosing. And choosing requires energy, even when you're making good choices. Then there's the pressure to optimize. You're told you should invest smarter, negotiate better, side hustle more, plan earlier, retire sooner. It's never just do okay, it's maximize everything. Optimization culture is exhausting. You're not just trying to survive, you're trying to optimize survival. And that creates a sense of never enough, even when you're doing well. You might even have savings, you might have investments, you might be ahead of many people, but if the bar keeps moving, peace feels temporary. There's also the emotional contradiction. You know you're better off than you used to be, but you don't feel lighter, and that mismatch creates confusion. You think, I should feel grateful, I should feel secure, I should feel proud, but feelings don't follow spreadsheets, they follow perception. If the world feels unstable, your nervous system stays alert, even if your bank account is healthier. And here's something important. Stress doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it means transition. You're adjusting to higher responsibility, higher stakes, higher awareness. That adjustment phase feels intense, but it's also growth. You're not careless anymore. You're intentional. Intentional living feels heavier at first because you notice everything. Over time, that weight can turn into strength, but in the middle, it just feels heavy. There's also identity. You might tie your self-worth to progress. If you're not advancing fast enough, you feel behind. If you're not achieving enough, you feel inadequate. Even if objectively you're stable, that internal narrative matters more than numbers. You're doing everything right, but your mind is asking, is it enough? Enough for retirement? Enough for emergencies? Enough for freedom? Enough is a moving target, and chasing a moving target creates tension. Here's something grounding. Being stressed doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're engaged. You're paying attention. You're trying. The goal isn't eliminating stress entirely. That's unrealistic. The goal is understanding it. When you understand where the pressure comes from, it feels less mysterious, less personal, more structural. Some stress comes from cost of living, some from expectations, some from comparison, some from uncertainty, some from ambition. Not all stress is a signal to overhaul your life. Sometimes it's a signal you care deeply about your future, and caring deeply is not a flaw. It's awareness, but awareness without perspective can turn into pressure. So what you don't need to win every financial category at once. You don't need to optimize every dollar. You don't need to outpace everyone. Sometimes doing everything right just means staying steady. Not perfect, steady. There's a difference. Perfection demands constant improvement. Steady allows breathing room. If you zoom out 5 years, you've probably improved. Skills grew. Income grew. Awareness grew. Maybe debt shrank. Maybe savings grew. Growth doesn't always feel dramatic, but it's there. And recognizing that reduces pressure because the mind often focuses on what's missing, not what's built. You're doing everything right, but you're also human, and humans feel uncertainty. They feel pressure. They feel the weight of responsibility, especially in a world where information and costs both move fast. So if you're still stressed, it doesn't cancel your progress. It just means you're navigating complexity, and complexity takes time to normalize. You don't need to have zero stress to be on the right path. You just need direction.
and direction matters more than emotional perfection. If this made something click for you, subscribe. Not because stress disappears overnight, not because there's a magic formula, but because clarity makes the pressure lighter. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're navigating a demanding world with awareness. And that awareness, that's not weakness, that's strength, even if it feels heavy sometimes.